My beloved brothers and sisters, there are moments in life when a person becomes a stranger to their own heart. Moments when the mirror reflects a face they barely recognize, not because the features have changed, but because the soul behind the eyes has grown weary, numb, lost. She was once full of laughter, purpose, and light. But life has a way of testing even the strongest hearts. One trial came after another, like waves crashing against a weakened shore. Disappointments tightened around her chest. Broken trust left silent bruises on her spirit. She walked through her days feeling like an unfinished sentence, present but empty. She tried to fill the void. She clung to people who were never meant to stay. She chased achievements that left her hollow. She tried to drown the noise, but found herself sinking deeper. And slowly, quietly, she lost herself. But let me tell you something beautiful. Sometimes Allah allows us to lose ourselves so that we may finally find Him. One night, in the depths of her exhaustion, she reached a point where the world had nothing left to offer. And in that silence, where everything else failed, she whispered a simple plea, "Oh Allah, help me." It was in that fragile moment that her journey back began. She discovered that hearts break only to let light in, that every tear carries a prayer, that the loneliness she feared was actually a divine invitation, a call from her Creator saying, "Come back to me. I am here. I have always been here." So she opened the Quran, and the words wrapped around her heart like a warm blanket after a long winter. She raised her hands in dua, and each supplication washed away a layer of pain. She learned that the one who created her soul knew exactly how to restore it. Slowly, she rebuilt herself not through this world, but through Allah. Her prayers became her anchor. Her trust became her strength. Her faith became her compass. And the more she turned toward Him, the more everything else fell into place. She realized that nothing lost for the sake of Allah is ever truly lost. He replaces, He heals, He elevates. What once broke her now built her. What once terrified her now taught her. What once weakened her now brought her closer to the one who never leaves. My dear listeners, this is not her story alone. This is the story of every heart that has ever felt lost. If you are carrying a burden too heavy, if you are searching for clarity, if you feel unseen, unheard, or unsure, know this: Allah sees you. Allah hears you. Allah is guiding you. Sometimes your breaking point is actually your turning point. Sometimes your deepest struggle is the doorway to your greatest spiritual awakening. So today, make a promise to your heart. Run back to Allah. Trust His timing. Be patient with His plan. And believe, truly believe, that whatever He is unfolding for you is better than anything you could have chosen for yourself. Because when you find Allah, you find peace, you find purpose, you find yourself. May Allah fill our hearts with unwavering faith, soothe our wounds with His mercy, and grant us the strength to hold on until His beautiful plan unfolds. The journey of being lost often begins so quietly that a person doesn't even realize they're drifting. It starts with a small ache in the heart, a subtle disconnect between who they are and who they once hoped to be. At first, it feels like simple exhaustion, too many responsibilities, too many expectations, too many emotions to juggle. But slowly, something deeper begins to shift. The heart grows heavier, the days feel longer, and the soul starts to dim in ways that words cannot quite capture. Being lost is not always about losing direction on the outside. Sometimes it is about losing the anchor within. For many, the journey begins with a moment of heartbreak or disappointment. Perhaps someone they trusted walks away. Perhaps a dream they worked for collapses. Perhaps life delivers a trial they never imagined they would face. And why? The surface of their life may still look intact. Inside them, something quietly breaks. They begin to question their worth, their purpose, and even their place in this vast, overwhelming world. The heart becomes like a traveler stranded in the desert surrounded by endless stretches of sand, unable to see where the next oasis might be. In this state, people often search for comfort in all the wrong places. They may throw themselves into work, hoping productivity will silence the emptiness. They may cling to people who drain them simply because loneliness feels too heavy to bear. They may distract themselves with noise, entertainment, or constant activity, so they don't have to confront the aching silence in their own chest. But no matter how far they run, the emptiness follows. Because emptiness is not a physical space, It is a spiritual signal. It whispers that the heart is wandering without the one who created it. This journey of being lost is heartbreakingly human. It is a part of our nature to forget, to slip, to distance ourselves from what truly nourishes the soul. The world pulls us in so many directions toward its glitter, its expectations, its illusions of success and validation. And before we know it, we begin measuring our worth through the eyes of people instead of through the mercy of the one who shaped our soul before our body even existed. We begin chasing things that were never meant to fill us. We begin hoping that temporary hands will heal permanent wounds. And with each misstep, the heart grows more fragile. It begins to feel like carrying a cracked vessel, trying to pour love and joy into it, only to watch it leak through the fractures. Being lost feels like standing in a crowded room and still feeling painfully alone. It feels like smiling while your soul trembles. It feels like watching life move on around you, while your own spirit feels stuck in a place you can't quite describe. But what makes the journey of being lost so profound is that often it becomes the very path that leads us back to where we truly belong. When a person loses themselves, they begin to see the limits of their own strength. They begin to realize that no amount of worldly success can heal a wounded heart. They begin to understand that the soul was designed to find peace only in remembrance of the one who created it. And this understanding rarely arrives in moments of ease. It blossoms in moments of vulnerability, when the heart is stripped of everything it once clung to. Being lost can feel like darkness, but darkness has a purpose. It quiets the noise of the world, so we can finally hear the whispers of our own heart. It reminds us that the light we need does not come from outside, it comes from turning inward, upward, and back toward the one who never abandons his servants, even when they wander. The journey of being lost is actually a journey of awakening. It is the soul's gentle nudge, urging a person to pause, to reflect, and to reorient their heart toward what truly matters. Sometimes a person must lose themselves to realize they were searching in the wrong direction all along. Sometimes being lost is the beginning of being found. And Allah, in His infinite mercy, allows these moments not to break us, but to redirect us, to remind us that our deepest peace will never be found in people, or achievements, or worldly pursuits. It will be found in Him. And when a person finally turns back, even if they are crawling, even if their heart is tired and bruised, Allah receives them with a mercy so vast that every piece they thought was shattered begins to glow with purpose again. Being lost is not a failure. It is an invitation, one of the most sacred invitations a soul can receive. It is the start of a journey back to the one who has been waiting for us all along. Recognizing that the world cannot fill what only the Creator can heal is one of the most profound turning points in a person's spiritual journey. It begins subtly with a series of small realizations that accumulate in the heart over time. A person may spend years believing that happiness is something to be chased found in people, achievements, possessions, or fleeting moments of excitement. They build their identity around relationships, status, or the approval of others. They invest their emotions in things that were never meant to be permanent. And for a while, these things feel enough. They feel comforting. They feel like purpose. But as life unfolds, as trials strike, as disappointments accumulate, the heart begins to whisper a truth it can no longer ignore. This world was never designed to heal what wounds the soul. A person may achieve everything they ever wanted: success, recognition, relationships, and still feel an emptiness that lingers beneath it all. They may smile outwardly while feeling an inner restlessness they cannot explain. That restlessness is not a flaw. It is a divine signal. It is the soul remembering that its true home, its true anchor, and its true nourishment lie not in the temporary nature of this life, but in the everlasting presence of the one who created it. The heart was not made to be satisfied by anything less than the one who shaped it, who sustains it, and who knows its burdens even before they are spoken. The moment of realization often comes in the midst of a storm. It comes when the people we trusted walk away, when the dreams we held so tightly shatter, when the things we depended on collapse like sand slipping through our fingers. It is in these moments of heartbreak, confusion, exhaustion that a person finally sees the world for what it truly is: temporary, fragile, and incapable of offering guaranteed peace. The world can distract us, entertain us, and even gift us moments of joy. But it cannot mend the wounds carved deep within us. It cannot lift the burdens that settle heavily on the soul. It cannot fill the spiritual void that grows when we drift away from our Creator. At first, heart may resist this realization. It may try to repair itself through more worldly pursuits, clinging even tighter to what it believes it needs. It may chase new relationships, new accomplishments, new distractions, hoping that one of them will finally silence the ache. But the ache only grows stronger because the soul knows its true source of healing. A person may fight this truth for a long time, but eventually they reach a moment where their strength breaks. And in that breaking, clarity blossoms. It is a clarity that whispers, "You were never meant to carry this alone." A clarity that reminds us, your heart belongs to the one who can heal it. A clarity that reveals, nothing in this world can give you what your Lord already has in store for you. This realization is not a moment of defeat. It is a moment of awakening. It is the instant the heart begins to understand that true peace comes from letting go not of hope, but of the illusion that the world is responsible for giving us what only Allah can provide. When a person understands this, they begin to shift inward. They begin to seek comfort in prayer rather than people. They begin to trust in divine timing rather than their own deadlines. They begin to root their identity in faith rather than in external validation. And the heart, once restless and weary, finds an unexpected calm. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because the heart is no longer relying on unstable foundation. It is leaning on the one who never wavers. It is trusting the one who never fails. It is turning toward the one who answers every call, even when it is whispered through tears at night. This moment of realization often feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, frightening yet liberating. Frightening because it requires surrender. Liberating because surrender brings relief. A person begins to understand that letting go does not mean losing. It means making space for what is better. It means releasing what harms the soul so that Allah can replace it with what nourishes it. It means acknowledging that every disappointment was actually a redirection. Every closed door a protection. Every heartbreak a lesson wrapped in mercy. When a person finally recognizes that the world cannot heal them, they turn to the one who can. And in that turning, they discover a love more pure, a comfort more lasting, and a strength more unshakable than anything they have ever known. They begin to experience the sweetness of faith, not just in moments of ease, but in moments of difficulty. They begin to see their trials not as punishments, but as invitations. Invitations to draw closer, to trust deeper, to rely more fully on their Creator. This realization transforms a person from within. It softens their heart, strengthens their patience, and deepens their gratitude. They stop asking why life is hard and begin asking how they can grow through it. They stop depending on temporary sources of happiness and begin anchoring their hearts in eternal truths. They walk through life with a quiet confidence, knowing that even when the world disappoints them, their Lord never will. And the more they embrace this truth, the more they find themselves not through the world, but through the one who created it. Turning back to Allah is often described as a moment, but in reality, it is a journey, a quiet, powerful transformation that begins deep within a tired heart. It is the awakening that happens when a person realizes that no amount of worldly comfort can heal the ache they carry. It is the recognition that the soul, no matter how far it has wandered, longs to return to the one who fashioned it. The path back to Allah is not paved with perfection. It is paved with sincerity, vulnerability, and a yearning for peace that the world fails to provide. This journey usually begins when the heart reaches a breaking point. When someone has tried everything seeking help from people, drowning themselves in distractions, forcing strength they no longer have, only to find themselves back in the same emptiness. It is often at this lowest moment that a person whispers a plea they have not spoken in a long time. "Oh Allah, I need you." That whisper, even if it is broken and trembling, is more powerful than they realize. It is a turning point. It is the soul finally admitting what it has always known: it cannot survive without its Creator. When a person turns back to Allah, the first thing that changes is not their life, it is their heart. A tenderness begins to settle inside them. They feel a strange relief, not because their problems have disappeared, but because they finally know where to place them. Every tear becomes a form of worship. Every sigh becomes a prayer. Every frustration becomes a conversation with the one who understands them better than they understand themselves. Allah does not expect perfection. He expects effort. He expects sincerity. And even the smallest step toward him is met with mercy greater than anything we can imagine. The process of coming back often begins with dua. At first, the words may feel clumsy, hesitant, or incomplete. A person might feel unworthy, ashamed, or unsure if Allah will even hear them after so long. But the most beautiful truth is this: Allah never turns away a heart that turns toward Him. Every whispered plea, every silent cry, every thought that begins with Ya Allah is collected with mercy, not judgment. Slowly, the heart that once felt dry begins to soften. The person who once felt distant begins to feel seen. Dua becomes oxygen, something the soul cannot live without. Then comes the return to prayer. Sometimes it starts with one prayer a day, or even one sincere prostration after weeks of neglect. But that single act of bowing down, placing the forehead on the ground, carries a kind of healing nothing else can offer. In sujood, the soul rests. In sujood, tears become purification. In sujood, the weight carried for years begins to lift, even if only slightly. Prayer becomes a sanctuary, a place where the heart can finally breathe after suffocating under the pressures of the world. As a person continues turning back to Allah, trust naturally begins to grow. Trust is not simply believing that things will get better. It is believing that Allah will carry them through even when things are not better. It is believing that every delay has wisdom, every hardship has purpose, and every loss has a divine replacement waiting at the right time. Trust in Allah is like handing over a burden you can no longer carry and saying, I surrender this to you because I know you will handle it with mercy. With each step of this journey, life may not become easier immediately, but it becomes more meaningful. Pain becomes lighter. Confusion becomes clarity. Despair becomes hope. Turning back to Allah also transforms how a person sees themselves. They begin to understand that their worth was never tied to the approval of people. Their value does not decrease because of mistakes. Their past does not disqualify them from Allah's mercy. Instead, they learn that every setback was part of their path back to Him. What once felt like punishment reveals itself as protection. What once felt like abandonment becomes a realization that Allah was guiding them step by step to this very moment of return. This journey is not perfect. There are days of strength and days of weakness, days of spiritual closeness and days of spiritual struggle. But progress is not measured by never slipping, it is measured by always getting back up. Every time the heart realigns itself with Allah, even after a fall, Allah welcomes it with open mercy. No effort is wasted. No tear is ignored. No step toward Him is insignificant. Over time, the person who once felt lost begins to feel rooted. They start to find joy in small acts of worship. They begin to see Allah's signs everywhere, in ease, in hardship, in silence, in waiting. Gratitude replaces resentment. Patience replaces panic. Hope replaces fear. And the heart, once fractured and exhausted, begins to glow with a peace it has not felt in years. Turning back to Allah is the greatest transformation a person can experience. It is the moment the soul stops running from its Creator and begins running toward Him. It is the moment a wounded heart decides it is worthy of healing. And once the heart reconnects with Allah, even if the world stays turbulent, the soul becomes anchored, steady, and beautifully unshakable. Rebuilding with faith is one of the most quietly miraculous transformations a person can experience. It is not loud or dramatic. It is subtle, steady, and deeply personal. It is the process of taking a heart that was shattered, drained, or worn from the weight of life's trial, and allowing Allah to reshape it into something stronger, softer, and more beautiful than ever before. Rebuilding with faith does not mean returning to who one used to be. It means becoming someone new, someone wiser, someone purer, someone anchored in a peace that no worldly turbulence can destroy. And this rebuilding begins the moment a person decides that their pain will no longer distance them from Allah, but will instead lead them back to Him. When a heart begins to rebuild through faith, the first thing that changes is perspective. Hardship stops being seen as a punishment and starts being recognized as a divine classroom. Every trial becomes a lesson. Every delay becomes protection. Every loss becomes a call to turn inward and upward. A person who rebuilds with faith understands that their story is not falling apart, it is being rewritten. What once felt like senseless suffering reveals itself as part of a plan too intricate to grasp in the moment. This shift in perspective alone changes everything. It fills the heart with a quiet resilience, a patience that does not crumble, and a trust that allows the soul to rest, even when circumstances remain difficult. Faith also reshapes the way a person handles their emotions. Instead of drowning in sadness, they begin to transform their sorrow into supplication. Instead of allowing fear to consume them, they use it as a reason to seek Allah's protection. Instead of letting disappointment harden their heart, they let it soften them into humility and reliance. Rebuilding with faith means using every emotion, whether joy, grief, confusion, or hope, as a means of drawing closer to the Creator. And this connection, this closeness, begins to fill the heart with a form of healing that no human being could have offered. One of the most powerful parts of rebuilding with faith is the way it helps a person discover hidden strengths within themselves, strengths they never knew they possessed. A person may have felt completely broken at one point, unable to move forward, unable to understand why life was testing them so severely. But when they begin to trust Allah's wisdom, they find themselves standing again, slowly, steadily, and with a new kind of courage. This courage does not come from ego or self-reliance. It comes from knowing that they are not walking alone. They feel supported, guided, and held by the one whose mercy surrounds them in every moment. This inner strength becomes a flame that cannot be extinguished by hardships because its source is divine. Rebuilding with faith also transforms a person's relationship with themselves. They begin to forgive themselves for their past mistakes, recognizing that Allah's mercy is far greater than their shortcomings. They stop carrying guilt like a burden and start carrying lessons like a gift. They learn to be gentle with themselves, understanding that growth is not linear and healing takes time. They begin to treat their heart with compassion instead of criticism. This shift in self-view is part of the healing Allah grants, a healing that restores dignity, worth, and hope. Another beautiful aspect of rebuilding through faith is the renewed clarity it brings. A heart that was once clouded with confusion becomes illuminated with understanding. The person begins to see the blessings they overlooked, the protection they did not recognize, the wisdom hidden behind every closed door. They start to notice the small mercies in their daily life, a sunrise, a moment of ease, a kind word, a peaceful breath. These seemingly small blessings become nourishment for the soul. Gratitude becomes natural, not forced. And gratitude, in turn, brings more peace, more stability, and more blessings. Rebuilding with faith also means relearning how to loving Allah first, and then allowing that divine love to teach them how to love others in healthier, purer ways. A heart rebuilt by Allah does not cling desperately to people. It holds them with kindness, but never with dependency. It learns that love without faith becomes attachment, and attachment leads to heartbreak. But love grounded in faith becomes mercy, patience, and goodness. It becomes a source of barakah, not pain. A person who rebuilds with faith begins to attract relationships that are sincere, supportive, and rooted in spiritual growth. And the most miraculous transformation of all is the peace that settles deep in the heart, the peace that does not depend on circumstances, possessions, or people. It is a peace that comes from knowing that Allah is in control, that every hardship carries purpose, and that every prayer is heard. This peace is not loud. It is subtle and steady, like a calm river flowing beneath the surface of life. It allows a person to endure storms without breaking, to wait without despairing, and to hope without fear. Rebuilding with faith is not a destination. It is a lifelong journey. There will be moments of strength and moments of weakness, days of clarity and days of confusion. But each time the heart falters, Allah's door remains open. Each time the person stumbles, Allah's mercy lifts them. Each time life overwhelms them, Allah provides a path through the difficulty. In the end, rebuilding with faith transforms not just the heart, but the entire identity of a person. They emerge not as who they were before, but as a new, stronger version of themselves, one shaped by resilience, guided by hope, and illuminated by trust in Allah's perfect plan. And that transformation becomes a testimony that no matter how broken a person once felt with Allah, they can always rise again. A call to action rooted in renewed faith, patience, and trust in Allah's timing is not simply an invitation to change it. is a lifeline for the heart. It is a push toward becoming who we were always meant to be, a reminder that life is not just about surviving trials, but about transforming through them. This call to action is the moment a person decides that their journey with Allah will no longer be passive. It becomes intentional, energized, and filled with spiritual purpose. And answering this call means stepping into a version of yourself that is guided not by fear, but by certainty, not by desperation, but by hope, not by impatience, but by deep trust in the one who controls all things. Every believer reaches a crossroads where they must decide, will I continue living, weighed down by the past, paralyzed by the present, and anxious about the future, or will I begin to walk with conviction, trusting that Allah's plan for me is more beautiful than anything I could imagine. This call to action begins when a person realizes that faith demands movement. It demands effort, even if the effort is small. It demands showing up for your soul the way you show up for everything else in life. Faith was never meant to be something we only remember in hardship. It is meant to be the compass of our lives. One of the most important parts of this call to action is embracing patience. Patience is not passive waiting, it is active trust. It is choosing to stay grounded when everything around you feels uncertain. It is resisting the urge to rush what Allah is still perfecting behind the scenes. Patience is a form of worship, a declaration that you believe Allah's timing is better than your deadline. It is refusing to let desperation push you toward decisions that your heart is not ready for. True patience softens the heart and brings clarity. It teaches us that just because something hasn't arrived yet does not mean it never will. It means that Allah, in His wisdom, is preparing us for the moment when it will be best. This call to action also invites us to trust in Allah's timing in a way that transforms our inner world. Many people trust Allah in words, but their hearts tremble the moment life becomes difficult. True trust means surrendering the outcome, surrendering the process, and surrendering the fear. It means saying, I don't know how or when this will happen, but I believe Allah will not leave me without what is meant for me. When a believer reaches this level of trust, life becomes easier not because the trial punish, but because the heart finally stops fighting everything it cannot control. Trust is the medicine that soothes the restless soul. It brings peace to the waiting, purpose to the struggles, and hope to the darkest moments. Answering this call also means taking action where action is needed. Faith is not merely a feeling, it is a commitment to grow. It is reading even one verse of Quran a day. It is making dua even when words come slowly. It is waking up for one extra prayer each week. It is choosing kindness even when your heart feels heavy. It is forgiving yourself when you falter and trying again. Spiritual growth does not happen all at once. It happens through small steps made with sincerity. And each step taken toward Allah is met with steps of mercy, ease, and guidance from Him. The call to action is not asking you to become perfect, it is asking you to begin. Another profound part of this call is shifting your focus from outcomes to obedience. Many people measure their spiritual success by what they receive from Allah, but the true measure is how they respond to Him. You are not responsible for what happens, you are responsible for what you choose. Do you choose prayer over neglect? Do you choose forgiveness over bitterness? Do you choose reliance over anxiety? Do you choose to trust even when life feels unclear? These choices become the building blocks of a life filled with barakah. And each choice, even the small ones, invites divine help in ways the heart can feel but cannot always explain. Renewing faith also means refusing to let the past define you. This call asks you to release what hurt you, to learn from what broke you, and to move forward with the lessons Allah gave you through every hardship. Allah never writes a painful chapter without preparing a more beautiful one ahead. But you must close the old pages with dignity and walk forward with hope. You cannot step into the next blessing if your heart is still chained to old wounds. Trust that what is written for you will not pass you, and what passes you was never written for you. This truth alone brings the soul a profound sense of relief. Ultimately, this call to action is a reminder that your journey with Allah is the most important story you will ever live. It is a story filled with tests and triumphs, tears and healing, weakness and resilience. And every chapter is designed with divine precision. Answering the call means saying, I choose Allah today, tomorrow, and always. It means walking forward with confidence, even when the path is dim. It means believing that Allah's mercy is greater than your fears, and His plan is greater than your imagination. When a believer takes this call to heart, life begins to feel different. Hope becomes natural. Gratitude becomes easier. Patience becomes possible. And the heart, once shaken by storms, becomes unshakable because it is held by the one who can calm any storm with a single command. And so the true call to action is simple yet powerful. Move forward with faith, wait with patience, and trust with certainty. Because everything Allah has written for you will arrive exactly when your heart is ready to receive it.